think mobile games and fighting games really don't go well together. You need to press a lot of buttons, and fighting games like Mortal Kombat usually have auto features which completely ruins the experience. However, if you are addicted to fighting games like I am, know that there are a few hidden ones on the Play Store, and of course I gathered all of them here to show you now, so leave a like and come with me. This is one of those very unknown games on the Play Store, but with a very old school fighting gameplay. Let's talk about TLOTS Gold Edition. In the game, you end up controlling several female characters in basically 2D fights to reach the end. The game doesn't have a complex story mode, and there's also nothing to really upgrade in your characters. It's really hard to describe, but it feels a lot like older games where you just pick your character and go straight into fights against other characters. The whole system works really well, and it's the kind of game that doesn't get much attention on Android for some reason. I'm absolutely sure you don't know this game since it's a Transformers fighting game. Let's talk about Transformers Forged to Fight. This is a fighting game that mixes a lot of RPG elements with 2D combat. The game also has a full story mode for you to follow the Transformers storyline, but the fighting itself is very well made with parts of your robot that you can upgrade and improve for battles. The game could also be considered a turn-based RPG, for example. However, I think the developer tried to innovate a lot and basically turned it into both an RPG and a fighting game. The truth is, this game is very different and worth trying. This is one of those games that almost nobody knows about. You'll probably only see it here on this channel. Let's talk about Two Strikes Slide. This is a fighting game distributed by Crunchyroll. It's basically a port made to be played on mobile, and surprisingly, it doesn't have anything automatic. There are many buttons, and if you don't know how to use them, you will lose. One really cool thing is that it has several different game modes, like each character's story mode. You can also just play normally, for example, or even play online if you want. And the game also got a very interesting DLC with the character Baki from the anime, which turned out really great. It's definitely worth checking out. When it comes to fighting games, this one might be something you've probably seen many times on the Play Store. Let's talk about Ultimate Fighting. I think it's fair to say this game is a middle ground between automatic and manual controls. The game does have some buttons you need to press, and you really need to think carefully before attacking or defending, for example. However, as you can see, it still has an auto mode. Another thing the game has is some online modes to unlock characters and also unlock other features. You can also play PvP, for example, and there's also a kind of career mode to upgrade your characters. Honestly, I don't really like this game that much, but a lot of people do play it. In my personal opinion, this is the best one for you to play offline. Let's talk now about a very hidden game called VITA Fighters. The best part about it is that the game is updated almost all the time. The first time I played it, there were around 10 characters. Coming back now to make this video, I can say the game has more than 20. And for those who don't like that more automatic mobile style, this game really doesn't have it. You need to learn the moves and special attacks of each character, otherwise you'll lose right from the start. Besides that, all the characters are references to pop culture characters. But what's really cool is finding a real old school fighting game hidden on the Play Store. When it comes to playing with your friends and even online fighting games, there's nothing better than this. Let's talk about Smash Legends. Yes, I know it's not a classic 2D fighting game. It actually works in a different way, since you can either reduce your enemy's life or knock them out of the battlefield. The game has several characters, more than 25, and all of them with very different abilities. Besides that, you can play 1v1, which is the most fun mode, and even play with other people in a 3 versus 3 mode, which is insane. I really wonder why Smash Legends is not that famous, because it is definitely one of the best fighting games on the Play Store.
Ow! I bet that hurt!
I don't know if you're aware, but there's a very famous fighting game called Street Fighter, and yes, there is Street Fighter 4 for mobile. Capcom had already made a port a long time ago, but the game ended up being poorly updated and became limited to older phones. However, recently it got updated again and is now appearing on the Play Store, and not only that, but there's also a Netflix version where you can basically play it for free. And well, this one is Street Fighter, so there's not much to explain. It's exactly Street Fighter 4 from the Xbox 360. Honestly, I really didn't like the name of this game, and let's talk about Super Dragon Punch Force 3. This is another one on our list that supports crossplay. If you have someone playing on PC, you can play together with them. The game also has several interesting characters. As you can see, the gameplay is relatively automatic as well, and the game works both in offline mode, where you can discover the story of the characters and finish the game with each one of them, and also in online mode, where you can play with your friends. It's very simple, but still manages to be a pretty complete fighting game. It's definitely worth trying. Taekwondo Grand Prix is simply the name of this game, and just by the title you can already tell exactly how it works. This game is offline only and has just a career mode. Basically, the goal is to win the grand prize by defeating all the other players, and that's it. The combat system is a bit different since it's Taekwondo and you need to land 3 hits on your opponent. It's a bit difficult at first, but you get used to it over time. Graphically, I really like this game, and honestly it's one of the simplest and most fun to play without any commitment. It's the kind of game you enter, finish and leave feeling satisfied. Another game you'll probably only find here is a boxing game called Thunder Ray, and well, this isn't a conventional fighting game. It's a fighting game, but I honestly don't know the exact name of this style. In it, you help Ray, a boxer character, become the greatest of all time, and to do that, you'll have to go through normal fighters and even witches. The game has a really interesting progression system for your character, and of course, the combat makes you think carefully before attacking and also when defending. It also includes a full career mode and a story mode to complete the experience. Maybe I would be cheating by putting this game here, but I think this one also counts as a pretty fun fighting game. Let's talk about SAKAR Infinity, as that, well, this game is actually based on an Indian movie that I honestly haven't watched, and I have no idea what its name is, but the idea is that you take your character and defeat as many villains as you can. The game has a more roguelike essence here, where you need to keep defeating lots and lots of enemies, but with gameplay that strongly reminds fighting games like Tekken. The truth is that SAKAR Infinity is actually a very fun game, especially if you enjoy beating up enemies. Definitely one of the most famous games on this list is Shadow Fight. There are actually several of these games you can play, and I'll explain exactly how they work. If you want something more offline and casual, I recommend installing Shadow Fight 2, which is maybe one of the best on the platform. However, it doesn't work in online mode. But the latest release, i.e. Shadow Fight 4 Arena, is very good for playing online with other people, even with your friends, and of course it's much more updated as well. It's really amazing to see how much this game has grown, and it truly deserves it since it's one of the big fighting games on the Play Store. You've probably come across this game on the Play Store, seen that ugly icon and just scrolled past it. But let's talk about SINAG. I have to say I've been following this game since its launch, and I can tell you it has improved a lot. This is also a much more old school fighting game on the Play Store, where you pick your character and need to learn all the buttons, otherwise you're going to lose. When it first launched, there were around 5 characters. Nowadays the game already has more than 15, and you can say it keeps improving all the time, adding more characters, more stages, improving graphics and also the gameplay. Yes, it's not a perfect game, in fact it's a bit weird, but it's improving a lot and it has potential. Without a doubt, one of the most visually beautiful games on this list is SKULLGIRLS, and this is a game that works in all possible ways. You can play offline to earn money, for example, and unlock characters, and it also has online modes where you can play with your friends or do random PvP. I honestly really like the character designs. I think the characters are very well made. It also works with a slight auto system on the Play Store, and honestly a lot of people don't even realize it's a fighting game because of how beautiful it looks. This is a funny game because it works both as a 2D fighting game and also as a beat 'em up. Let's talk about Smash Club. I'm really impressed by how many characters this game has. I'd say there are around 30, but you start playing with only 3 or 4 at most, and you unlock more as you play. There are some characters that you can only unlock with money, but the truth is that most of them you can unlock just by playing the game. This is also a more traditional fighting game and still pretty unknown on the Play Store, but this is exactly the type of game I know you came here on this channel to find. Maybe you've already confused this game with Street Fighter since it uses a very similar character. Let's talk about Final Fighter. This game also mixes different formats, both online and offline. The character I mentioned that looks like Street Fighter is basically Sakura, which is very similar and even uses the same name. The game probably has around 10 characters for you to unlock, and you can get all of them just by playing. The combat is not fully manual, but it still works in a pretty good way, and this might be one of the most famous games on our list since it has a lot of downloads. Out of all the fighting games we talked about, this one might be the most strategic. Let's talk about Knights Fight 2. The idea of this game is to build your knight and reach the top by becoming the strongest warrior. The game has 3 fighting styles you can use: longsword, sword and shield, and also spear, but the most interesting part is that you can't just keep attacking since your stamina will drop. The main idea is knowing when to dodge, use parry, and at the same time attack, and of course everything gets harder because the game is full PvP. Another game you'll probably only find here is a very old school fighting game. Let's talk about Kung Fu Do Fighting. Well, this game is very similar to wrestling style fighting games from the PlayStation 1 era, for example, where it was basically 2D. You had to choose one of the characters and try to reach the end without dying. The game has around 10 characters and the gameplay works in a simple and functional way. And honestly, that's basically it about the game. It's how a fighting game on Android should feel. However, since there's not much to upgrade, buy, or even watch ads for, the game doesn't become very popular. Premaster is a fighting game that manages to innovate a lot by placing you in a completely open world with several characters, and let's talk about it now. I really like this game because it has a lot of kung fu. In the game you go through several different scenarios, basically seeking revenge between fighters. Usually the game gives you open environments to explore and of course many different enemies. It's also not a traditional fighting game, but it is still a fighting game, if that makes sense. But it's worth remembering that it's much more of an online game with things to buy and upgrades for your character. Maybe one of the latest releases in 2D fighting games, let's talk about Punch TV Fight. For those who know it, this game is from the same developer of Maximus 2, if I'm not mistaken. You can notice it uses the same characters and also a similar idea, but in a better 2D fighting format. This game also impressed me with the number of characters it has. I'd say there are more than 40, and the best part, at least from what I saw, is that you can unlock all characters pretty easily. The game has a pretty solid career mode and also an online mode where you can easily play with your friends. With a simplified gameplay that really works in its favor, it's definitely a great fighting game on the Play Store. Well, this game has 2 versions on the Play Store and I'll explain exactly what they are. Let's talk about 8-bit fighters. I really like this game's graphics. I think they look very nice. The game has its normal 2D fighting version, which works really well. And it also has another version, which is basically a beat 'em up using the same characters and the same gameplay idea. In this version, you just keep walking to the right as far as you can go. This is another game you'll probably only find here on this channel because it's very unknown and has very few downloads on the Play Store. It's also a game that pushes a lot of people away because of its graphics, but don't underestimate it. It's actually pretty fun. I know this is a very big fighting game outside the Play Store, but this one is a bit different. Let's talk about BLAZBLUE RR. This version is more online and also feels a bit like a beat 'em up. In the game, you choose a character and go through around 5 stages until you reach the final part where it actually becomes more like a fighting game. It's a much more online focused game with character progression, gacha systems and other features. The combat can be extremely addictive since it also feels a lot like a hack and slash, but honestly a lot of people don't even know this game exists on the Play Store. Definitely one of the most fun fighting games on our list, mainly because of how it actually works. Let's talk about Bloody Bastards. I'd say this game is much more focused on an offline system since you upgrade your character and try to become the greatest gladiator of all. However, it is possible to have 1v1 matches with your friends as well. It's also a 2D fighting game, but the difference is in how you control your character. You only control the legs and arms, which makes the movement kind of funny and usually not very accurate, and that's exactly the fun of it. It's not the kind of game where you'll win every match, but it's definitely one where you'll have a lot of laughs. Many people tend to underestimate this game, but I'm going to tell you it's one of the most interesting 2D fighting games on the Play Store. Let's talk about Dual Souls. Another game you'll probably only find here, completely unknown and underground. And yes, it's also that more old school fighting game where you pick your character and just beat up another one. And yes, I know what you're thinking. The game really looks ugly and weird, but it's honestly just a matter of getting used to it. Once you start learning and understanding all the characters, it becomes a really fun fighting game. Seriously, don't underestimate this game. Give it a chance because it's worth it. Honestly, I'm not really sure what exactly happened with this game, even though I've looked into it a lot. Let's talk about Fighting X Slayer. The only thing I know is that it's a free fighting game on Nintendo Switch. It's basically a more old school fighting game that looks a lot like Street Fighter 4, which we mentioned earlier. But for some reason on Android, it only has 2 characters on a single screen, so the game ends up becoming pretty repetitive since you can't fight against other characters. Still, I can say that it would definitely be one of the best fighting games you could find on the Play Store, and honestly, it's a shame, but you can still get a taste of how the game works. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed discovering these fighting games, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.